Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is the first midweek of 2022. And
Woo!
as you can see, we have a very special guest here. If you do not know who this man is, this is our lead pastor, Pastor John. Why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
It's great to be with you, Izzy, today, and great to be with you online. My name is John Martin. I serve as the lead pastor here at Victorville First Assembly of God Church. I've been here as the pastor since October of 2006, or just over now 15 years. It's been an incredible run, and so blessed to be the pastor of our church.
Yeah, it's indeed been an incredible run. 15 years. That's a long time. I mean, not to put my age out there, but when you started, I was a kid, and now I'm an adult and everything. And
Well, I feel old. There we go. No,
you feel wise, not
there,
old.
that's all good.
So, yeah, how have you been with the holiday season? I know COVID has happened and people have gotten sick, but have you guys enjoyed your time during Christmas and New Year's?
Yeah, I'm the biggest kid at Christmas time, and
Oh,
so I love Christmas. My favorite service of the entire year
hmm.
is the Christmas Eve service, and so great to be able to light candles and have communion, and see the place packed, and we obviously broadcasted that online as well, and spent time with family. So I love giving gifts and occasionally receiving gifts, and since my birthday is the day after Christmas, that was Christmas Eve, then Christmas Day, and then the next day my birthday, and so opening up gifts really 3 days in a row was super fun. And then New Year's Eve, we were able to baptize 21 people as a part of that evening service, and
Wow.
so it's been a great season. Obviously, COVID is like huge right now, and we're praying God's strength and protection and breakthrough and favor upon people's lives in the midst of fighting this pandemic.
Oh, wow. You said obviously you're the biggest kid for Christmas. Have you got any cool gifts this year?
So every year, I ask for at least one game,
Hmm.
and so like super important to me that we get a game, and it's typically a family game, and obviously as the years have gone by, the games have changed. Everything from when I was a teenager, getting the original Pong game. Some of you are old enough to remember the original video game called Pong, where this little blip goes across the screen. You got two paddles going back and forth. To now games that we love to play, like Settlers of Catan, or a game called Pandemic, or Wingspan, or Ticket to Ride, all those great games
Oh,
that are
wow.
out there. So we have fun as a family. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you are a big game person. So that's pretty interesting because I know we talked a little bit prior, and you're very into sports too, right? I believe you played football and tennis, of course.
Right. So I grew up actually playing soccer as a little kid, and then picked up tennis. My dad played tennis, and so we would hit the tennis ball. And so I played tennis and soccer in high school, and we moved from the East Coast in the suburbs of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to the West Coast north of Seattle. My dad took a job transfer with Scott Paper Company, worked as an executive for them. When all of that transpired, both sports were in the same season in the spring, and so fall was open, and they needed a punter and a kicker for our high school team, and so I did that my senior year in high school. So that was fun.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow. Okay. So you grew up in the East Coast, right? And you said Pennsylvania, correct?
that's correct.
And then you moved to Washington in the
That's right.
Seattle area, right?
Yeah, right. Uh-huh.
How many? So are you are number what in the sibling line?
So I have two brothers. There's three of us in the family. I'm the middle of three boys. My mom used to refer to us as my three sons, which again you'd have to be old enough to remember. That was a TV show from many many years ago. But I'm one of three boys, and first 17 years of my life were in the Philadelphia area, and then 2 weeks after the U.S. hockey team won the gold medal at the Lake Placid Olympics in 1980. We were on a plane flying one way to Seattle Tacoma International Airport, where I ended up then attending high school, finishing my junior year in high school, and then my senior year, and graduated from Everett High School north of Seattle.
Wow. Okay. So So obviously you graduated Seattle and everything, and then you went to, I believe, Northwest University in the Seattle area. So what was that experience like going to college? And I mean, there's a lot of people I know now that are want to go into dorms and everything, and the pandemic hit, so they don't know the experience of just like hanging around people and not worry about getting sick like that and everything. And in that season, when did you figure out that you was called to be a pastor?
Yeah, so I had been accepted at Seattle Pacific University
Oh, okay.
into really a program that was going to be really a pre-dental program. So I was going to become a dentist. I was thinking I'd be an orthodontist and straighten kids' teeth, and walk down a road of just enjoying life that way. Get involved with love Jesus. Get involved in my local church. Maybe be a Sunday school teacher or board member, and do that. And then God called me into ministry. So my senior year in high school, before I actually went off to college, God grabbed a hold of my life. It was a very, very significant event for me, where God entered my bedroom and literally in a dramatic call called me into ministry full time. So I ended up going to SPU, Seattle Pacific, for 2 years, and then transferred out to go to Northwest University at the time college, which happens to be an Assemblies of God Bible school, and graduated from there with my bachelor's degree. Then went immediately back to the Midwest, to the Chicago area, Deerfield, Illinois, where I did my seminary work at a place called Trinity Evangelical Divinity School, or what's most people refer to as TEDS, and had a great time there. In fact, it was a great time to be in Chicago because the Bears won the Super Bowl in 1985 while I was there,
Hmm.
and the Bulls were playing some amazing basketball with a new guy on the team by the name of Michael Jordan, and so
Wow.
it was fun to have 2 years in the Chicago area going to school there. So I did my seminary work there. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah,
That's pretty cool. I mean, that would be nice to live in Chicago during an amazing time where the Bears won the Super Bowl and obviously Michael Jordan
absolutely.
rise to dominance in the
Yep.
NBA. To pivot a little bit more into the calling side, so you went to TEDS in Deerfield, Illinois. What did you do after the fact? Before you became pastor here, what other experience in ministries have you had?
Yeah. So wherever I've been, I've tried to be involved in the local church. So even as I was called into ministry before I went off to seminary, I worked as an intern in my home church. And then when I was in seminary, I did work in a church for 2 years while I was there, in Assemblies of God Church in Mundelein, Illinois.
Oh, wow.
And then I had the opportunity to join either that staff, that team, or another team in Washington, and chose to come back to Washington and get involved in ministry as an associate pastor in a local church there in Anacortes, Washington. First Assembly of God. Was there for almost 7 years. And then God called me at the age of 29 to go to Eastern Washington to a small community, Cooley City. And so, if you know the state of Washington at all, you may know on Highway 2, which connects Wenatchee to Spokane, there's a tiny little town by the name of Cooley City, and had an incredible time in ministry there, and pastored the church, pastored the town, really. 621 people in the town, and we were able to build up a really strong church, a wonderful church there. And so we were there for about 4.5 years. Then I went to the district office, regional office for the Assemblies of God in the Pacific Northwest, and served under the superintendent for a little over 2.5 years. And then moved into a wonderful role of being the lead pastor, senior pastor at Calvary Christian Assembly. At the time, it was called Calvary Temple, and great church, kind of this historic downtown Seattle church in the city, 4-story Gothic architecture,
Wow.
stained glass windows, whole thing, and pastored that church prior to coming here. And so it's been an amazing time in ministry. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's a dramatic transition, going from green, cloudy, big bustling city, Seattle
Yes,
area,
right.
and then you came, especially to Victorville during the time of the early 2000s, where um, I mean, I know Victorville has grown significantly within the last 5 years, but you came during a time where you probably see more dirt roads than actually sidewalks. So, like, what was your experience actually coming into the high desert?
It's really interesting how in each time in ministry, I've always felt like God was bringing that time to a close for
Mm.
whatever reason, and how the Lord prepares your heart for whatever the next thing in your ministry, your season of ministry would be. And I received a call from two different people out of the blue about a week apart saying, "Hey, there's a church in Victorville, California that's open. We think you should be the pastor there." These two people had no idea that the other one was calling. They really don't even know each other, and yet God started that process, and amazingly, then I become the pastor here, and it's been so cool to see God at work over these 15 plus years here. Yeah.
Oh wow. Um, Being the lead pastor of a church like this size, what were some new, I don't want to say challenges, but new experience that you encountered as a lead pastor here?
Yeah. So, unfortunately, the church had gone through some tough times 15 years ago, and for whatever reason, God has always seemed to open up a door to use me to help bring some healing into situations, and that was the case in coming here 15 years ago. In many ways, there was some brokenness, and yet the really cool thing is that today, 15 years later, people that don't know that story wouldn't even know that story had taken place,
Mm.
because the church here is doing great. Obviously, yes, with everybody else, we're dealing with the COVID thing and the pandemic and just navigating all of that, and so obviously that's very real. But God has done some amazing things. People getting saved and transformed, and the church growing and thriving, and some great things happening. So yeah, it's been fun.
Wow. Yeah, and the church has expanded immensely from, I believe, maybe under a little bit over under 1,000 when you came in, and now expanded to about 3,000, I believe, with 15 campuses. Like 15 campuses. Like, what what is that experience like for you? Like, do you? I feel like, I mean, managing one church is a lot, but managing 15, like, can you explain more what that experience is like for you?
Yeah, so that it's been an amazing thing, and the way the story goes is certainly that God um, utilized some very key people about 12 years ago, where I got a call from, at the time, our district superintendent, a man by the name of Ray Rachels, our assistant superintendent at the time, Rich Guerra, who then stepped into that role. And I've been working with Pastor Rich, on so many of our campuses now with what we're doing. But in that original phone call was like, "Hey, we need some help. We've got two churches that are right next to you in Apple Valley and in Hesperia that need some help. Can you parent them?" And I'm here like, okay, what does that mean? We had no idea. When I first came here 15 years ago, I never would have thought we'd be doing what we are doing today. And yet, that's just like God to open doors and to challenge us to step out of our comfort zone. And in this case, two churches couldn't afford pastors. They were having trouble, struggling, paying the bills, making ends meet. They were trying to really kind of navigate, how do we even move forward as a church? And so we came alongside of them and we said, "Hey, we'll supply a pastor for you, and we'll help pay your bills, and we'll help do some things. We'll help see if we can raise up a church and create some vibrancy back here again." And so God did that in Apple Valley. God's done that in Hesperia. And lo and behold, after doing a couple of them and starting to see some turnaround, some success, some breakthrough, some people saved, ministry growing, and really impacting the community, we said, "Okay, let's take on a few more as if we get calls." And so we got a call about Little Rock, and so that took place. And one by one, good things started to happen. Then we decided, hey, let's start planting churches. Let's not just rescue existing churches, which is obviously how we started this, but let's start planting churches, and that's what we did. And so now, of the 15 campuses that you're referencing, half of them we've helped plant, and half of them we've rescued and revitalized, and with God's help, seeing some things turning around and lives being transformed. So it's been fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And clearly, like, to do something like that, you have to have a God given anointing of leadership. And I think that's one of like the best qualities, that and wisdom and obviously discernment. Those are like the qualities that at least I've seen, and at least when I talk to other pastors, they see in you, um, as a shepherd, as the overseer of this church. And yeah, so there's no, I don't know anybody that could able to navigate and decipher and obviously pray and walk carefully and do what you have done, especially within the span of 15 years. Obviously, it takes like 5 years to even get one church up and running and stabilizing, but in a way, you were able to, with obviously with help and with a team, but was able to like empower, motivate, and obviously overseer um, churches, and not just plant new ones, but like you say, revitalize them, which is incredible. Like that's a remarkable feat that I don't think most of the community knows about that. How you were able to I guess anchor the ship and lead have VFA be the catalyst of what we know now today as the church is. And I think if I'm correct, it was a lot of churches outside of the SoCal district actually go to you and the team for advice on how to plant churches. Correct?
Well, let me first say you're very kind, and that was very nice for you to say what you did. I'll be the first one to say I'm not that great, and God's the one who is great, and He's the one who does amazing things, and so we give the glory to God, and it's just a joy, it's a privilege to be a part of what God is doing, and I'm so thankful that He's been able to use us to help some churches along the way. And so, we give the glory to God, and we say thank you, Lord, for what you've done. And so let me just say that first in response to what you just said. So I appreciate that. Yeah, and almost in the prayer of Jabez, which is something that we pray here on a regular basis. I have prayed over the course of my ministry on a regular basis. Lord, thank you for giving us the increase. Thank you for enlarging our territory, and Lord, just keep doing what you want us to do, and help us to be good stewards of this as we do that. And so I shared that from the angle of there have been occasional times where we'll get calls from people around the United States going, "Hey, how do you do this? What did you do here? How about that?" And we're here to help if we can help in any way, shape, or form. There's no perfect model out there. There's no perfect way to do church, but the Lord is perfect, and so if we follow Him, He'll give us the wisdom and the direction and the strategy to put in play to follow up that vision for reaching more and more people. So yeah, it's been fun to be a part of that.
Yeah. So with all these I don't want to say accolades, but more responsibilities that you have, how do you balance having a healthy family lifestyle and leading a church of this capacity?
Man, that's a great question. How do you balance that? And I um, in terms of balancing, I'd almost say there's really seasons where you need to pour yourself into certain things, but you also need to always come back and reevaluate. So if you have to pour yourself more into this or that or the next thing, it's really important that in the midst of it all, that the people who God has given you that are close to you remain super super important, and that you carve out time for them, that you take the time. So even today, as our kids are now older and they're out of the house, at least one of them's married, and so I think about creating memorable moments
Hmm.
along the way. So whether it's going to a sporting event together, whether it's going out to dinner together, or whether just making the time, creating the opportunity to do things that really matter, that impact. And so that's part of the reason why I love Christmas, love New Year's, to be able to take some time off, to unplug a little bit, to be able to spend time, to play games, to just hang out together. It's really important that we have that. because the people close to you, God has given those people to you, and we need to invest in them as much, if not more, than anything else we do.
Hmm. And throughout the course of the years, how have you grown as a leader? I know you obviously being intentional with the family aspect of it, but maybe more in the ministry side of things. What are things you've grown into as being the pastor of Victorville First Assembly?
Yeah, so I think, generally speaking, become a lifelong learner.
Hmm.
It's really important that you never arrive at what you do. You never become a perfect leader. You always need to work at your craft. I need to work at my preaching. I need to work at my leading. There's so many things that I can do better, and so it's really important that I'm a reader. I need to be reading. I need to be listening to podcasts. I need to be letting things, fresh ideas, continue to come my direction. And that doesn't mean that you do everything that you hear, but it's just like, how does that impact you? How does it shape you? It started with, in my case, doing a doctoral program at Fuller Seminary in leadership. And so that was a very key thing for me personally to work on. But just because you have a degree doesn't mean that you've arrived.
Hmm.
And so we got to continue to work on being better at what we do. That'll be something that I'll work on into my 60s, 70s, 80s.
Hmm.
It's just, I will never fully arrive, so I got to work on it.
Yeah. It's funny you said the 60s, 70s, and 80s, not to put your age out there, but 59. But um, in the future, right? So, like, yeah, the growth from the past, but what are you excited for this church, and maybe in the near future, or maybe in the distant future, for the coming years?
Yeah, there's probably a couple different ways to ask or answer that question. Um, the first is that everybody matters to God.
Hmm.
And, here in the high desert, 425,000 people that live here in what we refer to as the high desert of Southern California. And so many people need Jesus. So many people need answers to life's issues in a practical way, but also in a spiritual way. And I want our church to be a church that makes an impact in this community. And kind of almost to the point where we say it, where if our church isn't here, who would even care?
Hmm.
How many people would be impacted because we're not here? And so I want us to have a church and this is not because I want us to make a name for ourselves, but I want people in the community to know that, hey, if they need help, or they need spiritual help, they need help in practical life, and how do I do this? How do I make good decisions? How do I follow spiritual values and important moral and ethical things as well that are super important, that we would help to provide some answers,
Hmm.
because ultimately Jesus is the one who provides the answers.
Hmm.
And so if we can reflect Jesus well into our community, where people go, man, hey, that church is doing something, then and they've affected my life, or I know somebody who goes there, their life's been affected, then that's a really cool thing. I want to see that happen.
Wow.
And then probably on the bigger scale, I would love, and we talk openly about this when we had 13 campuses, now at 15, that 13 on the way to 30.
Hmm.
And so how do we continue to plant churches even in the midst of this pandemic? How do we rescue some churches that may be struggling? How do we walk with this in a way that one by one by one we're seeing people's lives literally transformed?
Wow.
And so those would be two aspects of that I'd love to see happen.
Wow. Now those are pretty big goals, and
It's okay.
and
We got a
obviously,
we got a big God,
yeah,
right?
huge God,
That's right.
definitely. And that's what I was gonna say. Like, obviously, God has already done a lot now. So they're obviously with faith and prayer, and obviously the will of the Lord. What can stop us? Um, as we've seen changes here today, um, and last year and 2 years ago with the pandemic, what would you give to not just our church community, but even people who may not even know Jesus? As as you said, you came into this church in a time where there was a lot of things going on, and as a pastor, you had to navigate with this church through changes as well. So, for the people who are watching this, what advice or wisdom would you give to our community about navigating with change?
Yeah, obviously change is inevitable. Uh, as as we go from decade to decade to decade, change will happen, and I think it's really important that we keep our message the same, and that's Jesus, who is the Son of God, who has died upon the cross to save people from sin and to help transform lives one life at a time. That message doesn't change, but the way in which we share it, because the world around us changes all the time, is that we need to make sure that we're doing it in a way that really is impacting people where they are. And so when I first came, our church, obviously, I'm kind of white, as that goes, and when our church was pretty white, but we saw the community change, and now the number one, I'll say, ethnicity would be Hispanic, and Caucasian would be number two, Black or African American would be number three, and number four in the high deserts, Asian. And what I'm really excited about is that as the culture, as our community changed, so our church changed. And so we can look out amongst the congregation, and I can see people of all different sizes, shapes, and colors. And the really cool thing is, that's, to me, that's the way heaven's going to be, and there'll be people of every tribe and nation that'll be there, and they have a relationship with Jesus. They're gonna be in heaven. They have eternal life, and I think it's important that we don't just limit ourselves to a smaller target audience of, okay, I'm white, so I'm going to have a white congregation, but God is wanting all of us to really model this thing well as a body of believers, as a sense of community of believers, and that God would use us powerfully to model that into the community well. Because obviously, as a part of this pandemic, there's been a lot of racial issues, and some very important things that need to be addressed. And I think the church should lead the way in modeling love and compassion to the people around us.
Wow, that's good. I got one more question.
Go
This
for it.
this is the most important question. Rhonda.
Yeah, absolutely. We haven't covered that.
Yeah. Um, First, how'd you guys meet? I don't even think I know the story. I don't think anybody knows the story, actually.
Yeah, the story's actually pretty simple. That so when we moved from the East Coast to the West Coast, we were looking for churches, and I was raised in a Christian home, and so my dad led the way with, okay, we're going to go to this church this Sunday, we're going to go to that church, and we were like in a different church every week for I can't tell you how many weeks, and we did the Baptist, Nazarene, Methodist, straight down Presbyterian, straight down the list, and my dad's assistant at work, their family went to this Assemblies of God church, and we're here like, we're not Assemblies of God, we're not Pentecostal, we're not, so, but she just nicely kept inviting my dad to, hey, bring your family to our church, bring your family, and finally we went one Sunday, and we stayed, and it was great pastor, great preaching, great youth group, and so it was a great church, and we went back again. Well, my wife was in the youth group, so
Oh, wow.
so when I was a junior in high school, she was a freshman, 2 years behind. We started dating when she was a senior in high school, and our first date was going out to play tennis and to have a picnic. We had a great time, and then one thing led to another, and we dated for 5 years.
Wow.
5 years, yeah, hard to believe it, 5 years, right? So part of those years were when I was in Chicago and she was in Washington, and so that was back in the day prior to cell phones, where you had a calling card, you had to punch in about a zillion numbers into a phone to try to take the cost of your long distance phone call down. And so anyway, So some of it was long distance dating, but we got married after that in 1987. So it was a lot of
Wow,
fun. Yeah,
man.
yeah. Thanks.
1987. Hold on, I'm doing math real quick. How many
Yeah, yeah.
years is that? That's a lot of years.
I was 24 at the time. If that would
24.
helps you out.
Okay, 24 minus 25 years of marriage. No, wait.
No, no,
No.
no, no. Keep
Longer.
going.
Bigger.
Yeah,
Bigger. 20.
30.
30.
Yeah,
Oh, 30.
yeah.
Is it 30 exactly?
No.
33. 30.
Yeah, 33.
33.
Yeah,
33 years. Wow,
yeah,
33 years of marriage.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
That's incredible.
yeah.
You don't hear too many of that, but that's not including the 5 years of dating too. So you've known Rhoda for a very long time.
Yeah, yeah. So it's 34 years that we've been married, and coming up on 35 will be this year. So,
Oh
yeah,
wow.
yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that.
How has she been an impact in your life, not only as a wife but even for this church?
Yeah, so Rhonda's amazing because well, many different ways. She's loving. She's compassionate. She's a great listener. She loves to sing, and so most of the people tend to see her either on the worship team or somewhere on the platform that way. But the fact is that she's just a great lover of people and wonderful one-on-one, and helping people with their individual questions and needs, and kind of discipling and meeting with people, having coffee with them. But she also has a huge heart for kids and has taught in our school here. And so been involved in here. She was a teacher by trade for many, many years of her life. And so I'm just blessed. I married up when I married Rhonda. So,
Oh,
yeah,
that's sweet. Yeah.
yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Hear that, fellas? Always marry up.
Marry up, marry up. That's a good thing. Marry up. Right. That's right.
Well, we have before we conclude, the church actually got some gifts for you.
You're so nice.
Yes. We want you to open, obviously, for
Okay.
everybody, so
Wow.
we can
Here we
all
go.
see.
Okay. Is it going to jump out at me?
No. It sounds scary.
Gotta love it. They're games. Go figure that. Family Feud.
Family Feud.
Family Feud. I will tell you that during the pandemic, I can't tell you how many times we watched the Family Feud. There you go. So that's awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And another game called Name 5. Can you name 5? Not familiar with this game. Look forward to it. Name 5. So thanks for the games. Yeah, we love family games. So that's awesome.
Oh, almost definitely.
Yeah,
We've heard
thank
that the Martins are avid board gamers.
Yes, we are. Yes,
you guys
we
have
are.
a whole closet specifically for games.
We do. We actually do.
So
Go
yeah,
figure that.
it was definitely a struggle to find board games that you guys don't have.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah,
I
but-
appreciate that.
Oh, no problem.
So good.
But we love you, and we are
Thanks, Izzy.
highly blessed as a church, even not just the church, but even the city, for obviously your leadership. And yes, God has obviously is the one that does it all, but God has used you as the light and as the shepherd for all of us. And obviously you walk with integrity, and you obviously make the wisest choices. You're a great communicator of the word. You're very knowledgeable, very brilliant man. And we just want to thank you for just the 15 years of service that you have given
You're
us.
so kind. Thank you.
And we hope it's another 15 years of service when we hit 30 campuses, and then you'll be 60.
Yeah, don't even worry about that. Don't worry about the math at that point. That's awesome.
But yes, thank you again for just coming here and interviewing. I had a blast just asking you these questions, and knew some things I didn't know about you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Izzy. And I love and appreciate you. I've enjoyed our interaction that we've had. And so thank you so much for having me today. Thank you for what you're doing with online ministry and reaching out and touching people's lives. And so thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us today. Love the fact that you're choosing to connect with our church through our online ministry. Really appreciate that. Way to go.
Yeah. So I think we'll conclude with this today. Thank you, church. Not just church, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for just coming in and watching this interview. And obviously, I hope you guys learn some new things about Pastor John like I did. We will see you guys next week, and God bless.